Hey everyone, if you're already here, heart racing a little, hit that like button right now because I need to confess something I've been carrying like a secret burning in my chest. What happened when my boss sent me on that business trip? I never thought a simple work assignment would turn into the most forbidden thing I'm still living with every single day. God, even saying it out loud makes my hands tremble. I was just an exhausted mid-level employee, drowning in endless deadlines that never seemed to end. Barely sleeping, eyes stinging from too many late nights staring at screens. Long-term relationship had gone cold months ago. Conversations that used to spark now felt like polite weather reports. Touches that once lingered were gone. I felt completely invisible, like I was fading into the background of my own life. That trip felt like another tedious obligation, another box to check, another few days away from the emptiness waiting at home. Until it didn't. The moment we arrived at the hotel, my boss, Mr. Reynolds, insisted we share the same floor for convenience. His voice was so casual when he said it, like it was nothing. But something in the way his eyes held mine just a second too long made the air between us feel heavier. Every morning I'd see him in the lobby, sharp suit hugging his shoulders just right, that confident smile that seemed to know secrets I didn't. And that subtle cologne, sandalwood and citrus, warm and clean, it started lingering in my mind after he walked away. I'd catch myself breathing it, and even when he was there, like my body was already memorizing him. I told myself it was nothing, just exhaustion playing tricks. I was here for work, right? Yet every time the elevator doors closed, and it was just the two of us rising toward our floor, the silence felt alive, charged. His hand would brush the small of my back, guiding me out, barely there, but enough to send a quiet spark racing under my skin. I'd step away too quickly, heart hammering, pretending to check my phone. Why did his nearness make everything feel so electric? Like gravity was gently pulling me closer even as my mind screamed to keep distance. Back in my room alone at night, I'd replay those small moments. The way his laugh during our first strategy meeting wrapped around me low and warm. How his fingers looked turning pages of the report, steady and sure. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, the city lights bleeding through the curtains, and feel this ache blooming low in my stomach, an ache I hadn't felt in so long. I was taken. This was my career, my fragile little life on the line. Yet the thought of him just one floor away, maybe loosening his tie, maybe thinking about the day, it kept me awake longer than any deadline ever had. The second morning he waited for me in the lobby with coffee, not the usual rushed kind. He remembered exactly how I took it. "Thought you might need this," he said, voice dropping just a fraction as he handed me the cup. Our fingers touched for half a second. Warmth from his skin bled through the paper sleeve and straight into my blood. I mumbled thanks, eyes dropping to the floor, but I could feel him watching me. That cologne again, wrapping around us like a secret no one else could hear. I wanted to step closer, I wanted to run. Instead I stood there frozen, pulse loud in my ears, wondering if he could hear it too. By the third day the tension had its own heartbeat. We were reviewing notes in the conference room, and he leaned over the table to point something out. His breath brushed my ear, warm and steady. "You see it here?" he murmured. I nodded but Cal didn't speak. The heat of him so close, the faint scratch of his stubble if he turned just a little. It made my thoughts scatter like leaves in a storm. I kept telling myself this was wrong, dangerous, that I should make an excuse and leave. But my body betrayed me with the smallest shiver, a quiet hunger I didn't dare name. And then, as we wrapped up that evening session, he paused at the door, hand on the frame, looking back at me with something unreadable in his eyes. "Early start tomorrow, get some rest." His voice was soft, almost gentle. But the way he said it, like he was already imagining me not resting at all. I swallowed hard, nodding, and watched him walk away down the hall. The scent of sandalwood still clung to the air where he'd been. I closed my door and leaned against it, breathing too fast. What was happening to me? Why did every almost touch feel like the edge of something I wasn't sure I could stop myself from falling into? I didn't know how much longer I could keep pretending those small moments were nothing. His voice during those late-night strategy sessions wrapped around it in the dark. Low, commanding, each word measured and sure. It sent unexpected shivers racing down my spine, even as I scribbled notes. I found myself noticing everything. The way his shirt stretched across his shoulders when he leaned forward, the quiet strength in his posture, the warmth of his hand when it accidentally brushed mine handing over documents, lingering just a fraction too long, and his laugh. Low sound made something deep inside me tighten with a want I had no right to feel. I kept telling myself this was wrong. He was married, a ring on his finger that caught the light like a warning. I was taken, my own promises waiting back home like shadows I couldn't quite face. This was my career on the line, fragile steps I'd taken to get here. "You're just tired and lonely," I'd whisper to myself in the mirror after another endless day, splashing cold water on my face. But every time that Sandoval clung to my clothes after a meeting, my body betrayed me with a rush of heat I couldn't ignore, spreading slow and insistent. The temptation built like a storm you see coming but can't outrun. In the conference room, he'd lean close to point at a chart, his breath warm against my ear, steady and intimate. "Right here," he'd murmur, and I'd nod, words failing me. The faint scratch of stubble if he turned his head, the heat of him so near. It scattered my thoughts like leaves in wind. I should have made an excuse, stepped away, but instead I stayed, pulse quickening, a quiet hunger blooming that I didn't dare name out loud. By the third night, the air between us felt alive, charged with everything unsaid. Too many drinks at the hotel bar had softened the edges of caution. We ended up in his suite, laptops open, slides glowing on the screen. We were standing inches apart, reviewing details that suddenly didn't matter. The city hummed far below, but in that room it was only us, the faint clink of glasses, the way his cologne mixed with the lingering wine on his breath. One moment we were professional. The next, his hand was on my waist, pulling me close with a gentleness that still held command. The distance vanished. His body radiated warmth through our clothes, solid and real. The kiss was sudden, hungry, his lips claiming mine in a way that made my knees weaken. I didn't pull away. His fingers slipped under my blouse, tracing slow paths along my skin, igniting sparks that traveled everywhere. A soft, trembling sound escaped me into his mouth, breathless and revealing, as the line I could never uncross shattered beneath us. I knew then, there was no returning to before. The weight of it pressed on my chest even as surrender pulled me deeper. He was married, I was taken. Yet in that moment, with his touch burning against me, the ache felt too powerful to deny. What had I done? And why did the thought of stopping now feel impossible? From then on the trip slipped into its own secret rhythm, for one I couldn't step out of even if I tried. Morning started with the soft click of his hotel door opening just enough for me to slip inside before anyone stirred in the hallway. We'd stand there barely breathing, his forehead resting against mine, the heat of his skin bleeding through the thin fabric of his shirt while that slow R&B track played low from his speaker, bass thrumming like a second heartbeat between us. I told myself it was only convenience, only the long hours talking, but every elevator ride became its own stolen world. The doors would slide shut and suddenly there was no space left. His hand would find the small of my back, fingers pressing just enough to pull me closer without a word. I'd feel the rise and fall of his chest against mine, warm and steady, while the numbers above the doors counted down to slowly. 1 floor. 2. Evenings blurred into working dinners that stopped feeling like work at all. Across the candlelit table his knee would rest against mine under the linen cloth, never moving away, the pressure constant and deliberate. I'd try to focus on the client notes in my lap, but every shift of his leg sent electricity racing up my thigh. When the waiter turned away he'd lean in, voice dropping to that velvet tone that wrapped around me in the dark, murmuring corrections to the proposal while his thumb traced slow circles just above my wrist. I forgot how to breathe properly those nights. The air felt too thick, too sweet, like I was drowning in the scent of his cologne mixed with red wine and the low hum of jazz in the background. Waking up tangled in his sheets became the part I craved most and feared most. The pillow still carried him even after he'd slipped out for an early call, that Sandoval lingering like a confession I couldn't wash away. I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, my body still humming with the memory of how perfectly we fit, how his arm had draped across me heavy and possessive in sleep. The same R&B song would loop softly from his phone, lyrics about surrender and midnight promises curling through the room like smoke. I felt alive in a way years with my partner had never touched, confident under his gaze, desired in a manner that made every insecurity I'd carried melt like frost in sunlight. He started leaving small things on my bed when I returned from meetings, a delicate necklace coiled on the pillow like an invitation, or room service breakfast waiting under silver domes with a single note that simply said mine in his sharp handwriting. Those gestures wrapped around my heart tighter than any touch. My partner had never looked at me the way Mr. Reynolds did, like I was the only thing worth seeing in a crowded room. The pleasure of it all was intense, addictive, pulling me under wave after wave until I stopped counting the times I should have said no. Yet guilt began its slow creep exactly when the sweetness grew strongest. My phone would light up with messages from home asking how the trip was going, if I was eating well, if I missed him. I'd type back smiling lies while the taste of Mr. Reynolds still lingered on my lips from the kiss we'd shared minutes earlier against the balcony door. The words felt heavy on my tongue, each one another crack in the life I'd promised to keep intact. Whispers from colleagues didn't help. In the lobby one afternoon I caught two of them glancing our way, heads tilted, voices dropping when they thought I couldn't hear. "They're awfully close for just boss and assistant," one murmured, and my stomach dropped like I'd missed a step on stairs. Paranoia bloomed hot and prickly under my skin. How long could we keep pretending this was only business? Every shared glance in the conference room now carried risk. Every late-night knock on my door felt like stepping closer to the edge of something that could ruin us both. I lay awake one night listening to the city traffic far below, his arms still curled around my waist even in sleep, the steady rhythm of his breathing against my neck, pulling in opposite directions until I thought my chest might split open. This couldn't last, but stopping felt like tearing away a piece of myself I'd only just discovered. What if someone found out? What then? On the last night, the city lights blurred outside the suite window like distant stars we could never reach. He pulled me close after everything, his chest rising and falling against mine in that slow, uneven rhythm that always betrayed how much he was feeling. His lips brushed my temple, warm and lingering, and he whispered it so quietly I almost thought I imagined it. "I don't want this trip to end, not with you." I lay there long after his breathing evened out into sleep, the same R&B song drifting softly from his phone on the nightstand. The lyrics wrapped around my ribs like invisible threads, tugging at every fragile thing inside me. My heart wouldn't slow down. It hammered against my ribs as if trying to escape the decision pressing down on my chest. Confess it all. Tell my partner the truth about these stolen nights, risk watching to relationships shatter like glass underfoot, lose the job that had once felt safe, steady, or swallow every trembling secret, bury it so deep no one would ever see the cracks, and step back into my old life carrying this new weight that changed how everything felt. The choice clawed at me until dawn crept in pale and unforgiving. I chose silence, for now. Coming home was like walking into a familiar room wearing someone else's skin. The apartment door clicked shut behind me with the same soft sound it always had, but the air tasted different. Colder. My partner greeted me with that easy smile, arms open, asking about the flight and the meetings as if nothing had shifted. I hugged him back, laughing at the right moments, yet every inch of me remembered the heat of another touch that still hummed beneath my clothes like an echo I couldn't silence. The house looked exactly the same. Same couch cushions, same coffee mug in the sink, same photos on the wall smiling back at a version of me that felt miles away. But inside, everything had tilted. My body still carried the memory of how his fingers had traced slope as along my arm in the dark, how his sandalwood scent had wrapped around me until it felt like home in a way this place no longer did. One whiff of anything close to it in the grocery aisle later that week sent a sharp longing through me so fast I had to grip the cart handle to stay steady. I was terrified of how much I craved going back. Not just to him, but to the woman I'd become under his gaze, seen wanted alive in ways that made ordinary days feel like holding my breath underwater. This trip had broken something quiet and essential in me, or maybe it had woken it up, and now I couldn't lull it back to sleep no matter how hard I tried. Nights blurred together in careful performances, I'd lie beside my partner, eyes closed, pretending exhaustion from jet lag while my mind replayed fragments I had no right to keep. The way Mr. Reynolds had looked at me across the conference table like the rest of the room had faded. The low laugh he'd given when I teased him about his tie being crooked. His hand steadying mine just a second too long. Guilt sat heavy in my stomach like stones, yet the ache pulled stronger, whispering what if we had just one more night. One more almost moment where nothing and everything happened at once. I caught myself staring at my phone during quiet evenings, thumb hovering over his name in the company directory. One message. One careless word. It would be so easy to tip us both over the edge again. But then I'd remember the colleagues' whispers in the lobby, the way my stomach had dropped like missing a step, and I'd lock the screen instead. So here I am, weeks later, still carrying it all alone. The secret sits between my ribs like a second heartbeat, steady and unrelenting. Some mornings I wake up reaching for warmth that isn't there, and the emptiness aches worse than any confession ever could. Tell me honestly in the comments. Would you have stopped it before it went this far, or would you have done exactly what I did, letting the pull carry you until the only choice left was silence? If the tension in that hotel suite has you holding your breath, every charged glance, every brush of skin that felt like gravity winning, every risky moment where we almost got caught, smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Part 2 is coming soon, with what happened when we stepped back into the office and the walls felt thinner than ever, because some fires don't die when you walk away from them. They just wait in the dark. Smoldering, patient, ready to pull you under again the moment you let your guard down. And I'm not sure I'll be strong enough to resist when that moment comes.